Hello there, my name is Thomas O'Regan. Over the last 4 years, me and my wife have 20x our property portfolio position. I'm a professional property investor here in Australia, and one of the things that I've become good at is negotiating for properties. Now, if you're negotiating a property, the first thing you need to understand about the market you're negotiating in, is it a hot market or is it a soft market? That is the first thing you need to understand because, markets can change street to street, suburb to suburb, state to state, right? So every little area is different. So you need to kind of understand, for example, like a 3-bedroom house might be a very hot market in your street versus a 2-bedroom apartment might not. So you need to understand what's the market doing in this area, in this suburb, in this state, and for this particular property type. But once you understand that, you can adapt the type of negotiation strategy that you will use to essentially get the best price you possibly can. But generally, if it's in a hot market, you want to negotiate aggressively. You want to do all your research up front, and you want to basically go in with your highest and best offer and a clean offer. What you actually need to understand in the background is before you put in that offer that's quite aggressive, and when I say aggressive, I mean as high as you possibly can, you need to understand what is the actual value of the property versus other properties that are comparable. Because if you're just being really aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, it is a recipe for disaster, okay? So a lot of people, when they go wrong in investing, is they're buying properties at the peak of a market cycle for over market prices. So when the market corrects, just essentially, this is the worst case scenario, when a market corrects, they've already paid above the market. So the property market corrects a little bit, comes back up, and it's, maybe 5 years, 2 years, whatever it is, however long it takes, it's here back to where the prices were, but that's after 5 years, but it's still not up to where they paid for it because they paid over market. So you have to be, if it's a hot market, you have to be aggressive with your offers, but you have to also be understanding what the value is of the property. You don't want to be overpaying for it. So I would say the best way to do this would be if you understand the value of the property before visiting the property or immediately after visiting the property, and hopefully this is the first time it's going on the market. What was I going to say? So say for example, there's this property in a hot market and it's been in the market for 3 weeks, and everyone's just punting around an offer that is probably a little bit lower than the vendor's expectations. Okay, what the agent's doing is he's just waiting for demand offers to build up. None of the offers have been serious enough yet to start a competition, and there's not enough yet. So he's waiting. He's not actively pushing buyers to make a decision yet. He's just waiting for demand to build up. This is what a good agent will do. And then once there's enough demand, he'll say, okay, he'll start a bidding war, and this might be at an actual auction or just a bidding war over the phone, talking to many potential buyers. And he'll say something like, okay, the vendor wants, you've all offered $5 million, for example, the vendor wants $6 million. Can you put your best offer forward? And say however many people he's got on the line, there might be 5 interested parties or whatever, and they've been interested for 5 weeks or whatever, and they're all around $5 million. They might just all put in their offer, and then he'll go back to the vendor and he'll say, this is where our offers is. Maybe the highest offer is 5.7, and then he'll just go back to the buyers, and they'll just keep pushing up the price, and it will probably get the price to the point where it's far beyond what the vendor's initial expectations were in the first place. Okay, so that's what happens in a hot market if you just are slow in the buying, in the negotiation. What I would typically do was I would know where the value is of the property. So for example, if the property's, and it's got nothing to do with what the actual price guide is or anything, okay? say for example, there's another house down the road that just sold for $6 million, and you've got like maybe 10 or 5 or whatever like that are comparable, and you're like, these houses are all pretty similar. They've all got a beach view. They're all 300 square meters. They're all 3-story levels. They've all got a carport. They're all the same, right? They're selling for $6 million. So therefore this property that's just come on the market, that's just got all the same comparables as the properties that I've just seen, it's gonna sell for about $6 million as they have for this one, right? So you go in, instead of being a low ball, whatever, you don't go in at 5 mil, you go in at boom, like maybe 6 mil. You just say 6 mil, and to put the pressure on here, this is the key. You don't just put your offer out there and in a hot market and let it sit. You have to make it aggressive. You have to say, you have to take conditions off if you possibly can. I wouldn't take conditions off if they are going to compromise your position. When I say compromise your position, I mean put you at risk financially or otherwise. But you would put an aggressive offer in and you say, look, I'm looking at other you would just say something to create some urgency with a response, right? You would say, hey, I'm looking at other properties, so I'm just really needing a response straight away from this vendor if he's happy to accept this price. Now, there's a good chance, like, because there's no, like, because everyone's like, I don't know, just getting their shit together, because the properties, as I said, you bring this offer to them when it's just come on the market fresh, right? Because everyone else is getting their shit together, that there's no real competition between you and anyone else for this property yet, because you've already put in quite an aggressive offer and the property's just come on the market. So, and they say to themselves, the agent and the vendor say to themselves, look, this is a pretty good offer. This guy's gonna walk if we don't accept his offer, probably should take it. That's how you get a deal done, okay, in a hot market. In a cold market, in a soft market, alternatively, it's very different negotiation. Whatever their price they're asking for, or whatever the market comparables are, or whatever the anything anchor that they have there as their price, or their expectations, you just take that number and lower it by a lot, okay? You put in a very low ball offer and you just let that offer sit with them. And there's the thing in a soft market is generally when you're putting offers forward, there's no competition. That's why it's called a soft market, because it's a buyer's market. There's no one competing to buy the property. There's not 20 people walking through the property. There's just you, and it's just you offering on the property, okay? So you put in a low offer and you just let it sit. And what that does in the vendor's mind is it's like it makes them think, well, I haven't got an offer in such a long time. This person's come forward. I've got my first offer from a buyer. Maybe I should consider it. They probably won't come all the way down to your price because you've obviously offered so low, as I said, but they will drop their expectations down to somewhere that will be more reasonable for you to purchase that property at in these market conditions. Now, I love to negotiate in those markets because I feel there's the most opportunity, because I like to get into a soft market that is that I can see is on the way up for capital growth. So when I purchase the property below market value, say the value's here, I'm purchasing it for here. So the market's here, the value's here, I'm purchasing it here. When the market starts taking off, it's like I'm getting double the capital growth, or a boost on the capital growth from what I would get otherwise if I paid market price. So that's how I make a lot of money in property. Hopefully it helps. See you guys, bye.